This is a HeadGum podcast.
Tune into the Unapologetic Podcast with lifestyle, wellness, entertainment, and cultural commentary geared towards bridging the gap between millennials and Gen Xers. Subscribe on SoundCloud and iTunes, as well as its online presence at www.unapologeticallyus.com.
Universal FanCon is a brand new convention coming to the Baltimore Convention Center in April of 2018. FanCon will be a round-the-clock event featuring comics, cosplay, gaming, celebrity guests, music, and more with a focus on diversity and inclusion. Get your tickets now at universalfancon.com because geek is universal.
Shannon, CG, Lauren, and Mel form the Nerds of Prey. A group of ladies bonded by comics, gaming, film, television, and fandom culture. Hang out with them bi-weekly as they dig into the very things that make them loud and proud nerds. Available on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher Radio, and Google Play. Also, check out their Patreon at patreon.com/Nerds of Prey.
Hey, this is Phil Lamar.
And this is John Stewart.
And this is Hermes Conrad.
And you're listening to the Black Girl Nerds Podcast.
What's up, y'all? It's producer Will Packer, and you're listening to the Black Girl Nerds Podcast. Keep it locked right here.
This is Theo Rossi, and you're listening to the Black Girl Nerds Podcast.
Hey, this is Kim Whitley from Next Friday, You Know Sugar, and you're listening to Black Girl Nerds. Yeah, they really are, y'all.
This is Riley Ritchie, a.k.a. Jacob Anderson, a.k.a. Grey Worm from Game of Thrones, and you're listening to the Black Girl Nerds Podcast.
Hi, I'm Joy Bryant, and I'm a Black Girl Nerd, and you are listening to Black Girl Nerds Podcast.
Hey, it's Sanaa Lathan, and you are listening to the Black Girl Nerds Podcast.
Hi, I'm Andre Meadows. I have a YouTube channel, Black Nerd Comedy. Have you heard of it? Don't matter, because you are listening to the Black Girl Nerds Podcast, the best podcast in the whole world that I'm doing a promo for right now. Boom! That's true.
Holla boys and girls, it's the BGN. Coming from the Marvel world to the DC friends. All the way from Hollywood to the PCN. She defends everyone from sleazy men. Won't apologize for spitting Shonda rhymes. The space that we make is never colonized. Talking games and movies and actors. Better shake your booties for Black Girl Nerds. Better shake your booties for Black Girl Nerds. Yeah, better shake your booties for Black Girl Nerds. Ha. Better shake your booties for Black Girl Nerds. Better shake your booties for Black Girl Nerds.
Thanks for tuning in to episode 123 of the Black Girl Nerds Podcast. My name is Jamie, and I am your host. This episode is titled Parisa Fitz-Henley, Luke James, and Comics Journalism. 3 wonderful segments. In our first segment, we invite Parisa Fitz-Henley. You probably have seen her on the new hit series on NBC called Midnight Texas. She also played the role of Reva Connors on Jessica James and Luke Cage. Well, she stops by to chat with us about her new show, and we talk about everything from her character Fiji, to witchcraft, to cats, to geeking out, and her fabulous cameo at our Black Girl Nerds of Color meetup. That segment is hosted by yours truly and co-hosted by Tora. Our second segment features singer, songwriter, actor Luke James. Now, I do have to apologize, had a mishap with the recording, and unfortunately, a large portion of our interview did not get recorded. We managed to get the last 20 minutes of this interview with Luke James, and we're going to try to reschedule another one with him soon. But we do have some of the recording available, and I wanted to go ahead and air it on this podcast. If you check out tonight's episode of Insecure, you're going to see a little cameo by Luke James himself. So enjoy that segment. In our third segment, over at San Diego Comic-Con, I was on a panel about comics journalism. And featured on the panel is editor-in-chief of comicsbeat.com, moderator Heidi MacDonald, Graeme McMillan, also known as a writer for The Hollywood Reporter and Playboy, Alexander Liu of The Beat, and yours truly, Jamie Broadnax of Black Girl Nerds. And we talk about everything from the pitfalls that comic book journalists faced, some of the challenges, some of the pros, and also, of course, diversity and where we are right now in the conversation regarding it, both on the front side of comics and behind the scenes. So enjoy this fantastic 3-segment episode of the Black Girl Nerds podcast. BGN 123, Parisa Fitz-Henley, Luke James, and comics journalism. Parisa Fitz-Henley is an actress known for her roles in Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and currently on NBC's Midnight Texas. She played the role of Reva Connors on both Marvel Netflix shows, and on Midnight Texas, she plays the role of Fiji Kavanaugh, a mysterious witch with some interesting powers, and we explore her adventures in this mysterious town of Midnight Texas. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Black Girl Nerds podcast. My name is Jamie. I am your host. I am so thrilled to have this guest on our show. This guest made a little cameo over at San Diego Comic-Con at the Black Girl Nerds of Color meetup, and we're really excited for her, and this is a long time coming. Parisa Fitz-Henley, who you know and probably remember best from Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. She played Reva Connors. And currently, you can find her on NBC's supernatural show called Midnight Texas. Parisa, thank you so much for coming on the Black Girl Nerds podcast.
Hi, I'm insanely psyched to be here.
We are psyched to have you, and happy to also have our lovely co-host Tora with me on this interview tonight. Tora, thank you for being here.
Hi. Thanks for having me. So excited to talk to you both, actually.
Woo, woo. So yeah, Parisa, we're huge fans here at Black Girl Nerds of Midnight Texas. Shout out to Nerds of Prey, who used the hashtag, came up with the hashtag Texas Tea, which we use every Monday night. At 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, NBC. So talk to us about your character, Fiji, and do you find that you have a lot in common with her?
I am so happy to talk about Fiji. I have so much in common with her. It's one of the things that really struck me when I was reading about her. Even the little when actors get auditions, we often get a little very brief one-sentence blurb about the character. And I read something like quirky hippie witch. And I was like, wait, hold up, this is me, wait. And then as I read the script, I thought I recognized this woman. And as soon as I finished the script, I went and started reading the first book of the Midnight Crossroads trilogy by Charlaine Harris. And I just kept seeing myself in this woman and seeing, in the book, which I highly recommend people read, and you can read them before, after, or during the show. We get to really hear Fiji's inner thoughts about herself and the people around her and the world around her, and I so resonated with so many of her thoughts. And it's just been a real pleasure to play her, because in some ways there are things that I bring from my life and give to her, and then there's other things I notice in her that I take and bring into my life. That doesn't always happen with a character, but it's just one of these really special relationships that happen sometimes, and I'm really grateful for it.
There's a lot
Does that answer your question?
No, yeah, that answers it perfectly. And I'm glad you brought up, recommending that we read the books, because there's a lot of supernatural elements to this show, like witchcraft and vampires. And this last episode that aired, there was a shapeshifter. And this is what we would expect from a Charlaine Harris novel. So what kind of research did you do to prep for this role?
Well, number one, the books. And I will say that what's so delicious about these books is that in addition to all these supernatural things, it's just it's human experience that you're going through with these characters. And as supernatural as they are, they're still human. And it's a real treat to be able to go along that journey with them in a way that we can't really do in television. But yeah, to research her, so much of it felt like she felt like she came just running into me. But what comes to my mind is the way that the way that Manfred gets inhabited by ghosts. I felt like as I prepared for this audition, I just felt like she was like, "Hey, get in! Like let me get inside of you." And so she came to me feeling very fully formed, and I had this strong sense that I didn't need to do a lot to be prepared for this audition other than show up. It was one of these very rare occurrences. But then, as I had the role, I took whatever opportunities I could to, for example, I met with the pagan community in Albuquerque where we were shooting, and went to a beautiful, it was a spring equinox celebration, or spring, I think that's what it was, a spring something celebration that was just so sweet. And seeing different people who identify along the spectrum of pagan life, some who, yes, practice witchcraft, some who maybe you're just around it. It was so sweet, and I was like, oh, I can completely see what this life could be like for Fiji. And Fiji is very much a loner in a sense. The way that she's positioned herself, there you see in the series, there are not a whole bunch of witches around, at least at this point. So it was also good for me to pick and choose some of the things that I learned about witches, but also make sure to keep Fiji as Fiji's own. In the books, you definitely see that although she teaches people about witchcraft, she doesn't have a coven of her own that she's a part of. She's more a kind of visitor to things, and she picks and chooses. So I took that approach in a way. What else? I mean, in my own life, I'm such a believer in the use of herbs and oils, and that energy is important and can be used for healing, and like these are things I already believed in, so it was very natural also to play a character that believes in them too.
Okay, this is Tora here. It was an amazing answer, though.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, thanks.
So historically, we have seen representations of witches and Wiccans. We've seen that their portrayal in the media hasn't always been so favorable, and even less so for Black witches and Wiccans. How do you think that your character as Fiji helps to dispel those stigmas?
Well, I think part of the way that she can help do that is because Fiji's pretty adamant about her belief that science and magic may be the same thing. I'm personally pretty adamant in my belief that the reason that there's been such an issue around quote-unquote witchcraft is because it's science practiced by women. It's intuitive science practiced by women very, very often. It's, I've talked about this before, but I'll say it again. A couple hundred years ago, it was a woman in the woods picking herbs and putting them in a cauldron and being called a witch and being, drowned or burned at a stake. And today it's called celestial seasoning. There are things that we killed people for that we now are like, oh yeah, that's totally normal. Oh, totally. Yeah, because science backed it up. Oh, peppermint tea, that's good for your stomach. Great. But if no one had told you that before, and you were a woman and you walked through the woods and you found something that you thought maybe this could help somebody, it wasn't respected. And I think so much of that is because of the gender aspect of things. of course, it's such a wide spectrum when you look at people who practice witchcraft or Wicca. Of course, like in any group of people, you're going to have complete jerks and you're going to have complete angels. And often the jerks are the ones that get the headlines. But I think the world has enough space for everybody, and I think that Fiji also believes that, and I hope that people will be able to watch her and see that example in her and realize this is not necessarily something they need to be afraid of. Mind you, picking up and crushing cars is a whole other issue, but in general, I think people will see that she's harmless. Yeah, you have a bad day.
Right. So, what steps do you take in order to make your scenes with Mr. Snuggles flow so effortlessly? I was just enamored. I was like, wow. I mean, I talk to my cat, but on camera, it looks like normal people do.
Mr. Snuggly is something else. I'll tell you this. We have such an incredible team at Midnight Texas, and they really make it happen. From the directors to the director of photography, because we have a different director each episode. Almost every episode has a different director. They set things up. They show me where I need to be looking, but a lot of times the cat's actually there, and I'm acting with the cat, who may or may not stay in one place. That's challenging. I mean, I like to say there will probably be an episode of Feud, or that, what is it? They make those different things about feuding actors. One day in the future, there will be one about me and Mr. Snuggly, because Mr. Snuggly is a diva, and he's a diva on screen, he's a diva off screen, and we're all, we're all second to the cat. Basically, he makes us wait in the cold. He makes us wait in the dust. We have to do what that cat wants us to do. So I'm glad that it comes across as smooth, because it's not actually always smooth to shoot. As you can imagine, cats are like, training, you're funny. They go where they want to go, and we've had some adventures with trying to get that cat to stay in my arms. We had to mash a lot of different kinds of wet food into my sweater to get him to stay for a moment. But yeah, it's fun. Half the cast are allergic to cats, by the way, including me.
Oh my gosh!
So it's an adventure.
Really? Wow.
I cannot wait to live tweet this season of Feud with you versus Mr. Snuggles. I cannot wait.
He's and if you love the cat stuff, you've got to read the books, because he's hilarious in the books. And actually, I listened to the audiobooks and read the hardcover copy. What do you call them? Hard copy books. I read them both back and forth, depending on what I was doing during the day. So the voice of Mr. Snuggly in the book sounds a lot like Cartman from South Park.
Oh my God.
Which killed me every time. Every time. So, I think it's a fun thing. I suggest doing the Kindle Audible pairing because it's cheaper or whatever, but it's super fun. And I've actually gone back and listened after shooting the show, so I know what's happening with everybody, and I still thought it was fun to go back to the stuff in the books.
Wow. Sounds like Cartman. That is very interesting. Now I need to pick up that audiobook.
Do it. And then tell me what you think.
Yeah. And I didn't know that you were allergic to cats. So that's very interesting. And obviously that can be challenging for you at times, playing against
I thought
this
I might
cat.
not get the job.
What's that?
Well, I thought I might not get the job, but because I had to let them know, listen, I'm allergic to cats. I mean, I'm sure we can work something out. But, in the books, she's always holding this cat,
right?
and the cats themselves, Mr. Snuggly's played by a few different cats. In reality, there is nothing in life that was going to keep that cat in arms. So it actually worked out really well because, it's just not the cat it's just not that kind of cat that he wants to sit around. And there's a scene that you'll see at some point. I'm trying to say this without giving away spoilers, but just where Fiji's had a really rough day, and it's written that the cat comes and sits in her lap, and then she strokes the cat. And I shot this scene, and it was really rough, and I'm standing there, and I'm like, all right, yeah, the cat's going to come over. And that cat just, like, walked up and then, like, just ran across my lap while my arms went up to hold him and just landed in my lap with nothing in them. And I was like, I really hope they keep that in. Because it was so cold. He was like, nope, and left. And, fun with Mr. Snuggly.
Aww. Well, a lot of
he's no dog.
He's no dog? Well,
he's no dog.
I love cats, so Mr. Snuggles is a fan favorite for me. I have 2 of them. And by the way, a good tip is catnip. Have you tried using that on your clothing to get the cat to be closer to you?
They also have catnip spray.
Yes, they do.
Ooh. We'll have to tell our animal wranglers about that. I know that they do all sorts of different things. Food is the big thing. So in my sweater at one point was mashed anchovy paste, turkey giblets, tuna fish, and one other kind of cat food.
You have to tell us the scene so I can go back and see if I can tell on your face.
You will see it. Okay, so it's the first episode, and it's where the police officer played by the lovely Laura Cunningham is questioning me at my house, and I walk outside with this cat in my arms, and then he jumps out. Now, he's supposed to be in a basket in that scene, but he wouldn't stay in the basket. So I said, listen, give me a Claritin. We're just going to make this happen. Because it just wasn't happening. And, on a TV set, time is really of the essence.
Mm-hmm.
And we were also dealing with it was always very cold, and it looks much less, it was very, very cold a lot of the time. So you don't want to do anything for a really long time if you don't have to. And so eventually it was like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And I can't remember who came up with the idea. Maybe it was me, maybe it was them. It was just like, let's just do this. And so they started putting every wet food that the cat liked into the crook of my elbow where my sweater was. And mind you, that's my personal sweater. It just so happened I was wearing it between scenes, and the director was like, that's not Fiji's sweater? I want it on her. I was like, all right. So that sweater is here, funk-free now.
Funk-free.
But so they just mushed all this stuff into the crook of my arm and just kept mushing more to get the cat to kind of at least put his head there and be interested while I walked out. But as you'll see when you watch it over, that lasts for maybe 1.5 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah. Eventually, cats are also not interested in treats. So yeah.
They definitely have interesting personalities. And, there's a lot of interesting personalities on this show. I don't know if you're aware of this, but a lot of us fans that have been live tweeting so far already want to start shipping you and Manfred. So first of all, what do you think about that?
Interesting. Very, very interesting.
Yeah. We've got to think of a portmanteau for the 2 of you, but that's what's happening right now when we're live tweeting. But where do you see Fiji romantically on this series?
Well, we know from the books, and we know from even episode 1 that Fiji has the hots for Bobo, if not loves him. You'll see. He's her best friend, but she's very, very into him. And for some reasons that are going to knock your socks off, she can never tell him. So it's, and you're going to see, I wish I could tell you things. I wish I could tell you what's coming in the next few weeks, but you'll see some things. Monica Owusu-Breen, our showrunner, has such a fabulous mind and is so respectful of Charlaine Harris and her work that it's like she's able to digest all of what was envisioned by Charlaine and then share it in a TV friendly version. It's almost as if it was like, how would I say this? Like, it's just a slight reimagining rather than being like, I'm taking this over and doing my own thing. It's like, well, it could have also happened this way in a sense. Mm-hmm. So, which is why I think you can easily go back and forth between the books because the characters feel the same. It's just like, this could be an alternate universe.
Right.
I'm such a Fringe fan, so not to spoil anything for anybody who's just starting that, but it's like an alternate universe in a sense, very, 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 very similar, but there's a few very important differences. Mm-hmm. So anyway, Fiji and Bobo have a huge connection, and throughout the season, we're going to see, like any friendship, that connection be tested. But I could see Fiji going in different directions. I could say that she's got a big heart, and it's so interesting, this idea of shipping with Manfred, because Manfred and Fiji, you wouldn't necessarily know it from first meeting, but they have a lot in common.
That's what I pick up on, those two having a lot in common.
I think you'll see more of that as time goes. So, interesting.
Stay tuned. Well, I want to thank you for coming to our meetup at Comic-Con. As I mentioned in the intro,
my God.
It was so much fun seeing you there. And also some of our journalists from Black Girl Nerds got a chance to talk to you at the NBC party. So that was great. Yeah. So it's a pleasure to have you there. And I know you're very much a part of...
Did you know I literally ran?
From the NBC... from the Black Girl Nerds of Color meetup? Or the NBC party?
I literally ran to it, and I ran from it.
I know you said you were in between, events. But look, the fact that you showed up...
I did not want to miss that for anything. And I was like, I don't care if I spend more time running. And it was like, probably like a 10-minute jog. Well, it was a run. Both ways, like 10 minutes each way. I was like, it's worth it. And mind you, also, some gentlemen behind me thought it was worth it too because my dress rode way up. I was wearing sneakers, but I had a tight dress on. And I passed some guys who were like, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" And I just wanted to be like, "You're welcome." I got places to be. Like I just kept going, but it was so worth it. I felt such a good energy from you all, and I feel such a good energy from you on Twitter that I just was like, I feel like even if it's literally like a relay, and I just pass the baton and run back. That's it. I'm fine. So, yeah, I love you guys.
Well, it meant a lot to us, and it certainly meant a lot to me for you to be there. And I know that you're very much a part of the online Blurred community. I see you tweeting with us all the time, and, you live tweet the show with us. So do you identify yourself as a nerd? And what's the nerdiest thing about you?
Yes, I don't know what's the nerdiest thing about me. Woo! There is a lot to choose from. What's the nerdiest thing about me? My God, it depends. Like nerd in what category? You'd have to probably ask my friends about that. But I probably my most favorite thing to read about for fun is Lord have mercy. I like grammar, but I'm not always good at using it. I really love learning about viruses and bacteria, and epidemiology.
Nice.
And so I get very excited. Like, the thing that I got super psyched about, there were a couple of things at Comic-Con that excited me the most, like from a personal level, and that's why I wanted to run to the party, was because that was for me. That's my crew, and I felt like I need that for me. But also, the thing I got super psyched about, was I was also thinking about today, was that I saw somebody dressed up as Ebola, basically. And I was like,
wow.
Oh my God.
As a cosplay costume?
Like, can you? Yes. He came up with it. And so he was like, it was like he looked like a health worker with blood splatters all over him, but the word Ebola and like a mask on. And I was like, can I take a picture with you? And then as soon as I was standing there, I thought, this is not ever going to get posted, because, to be honest, Ebola it has ravaged lives and it's horrible. Right. But on a personal level, me and this guy connected, because I was like, I feel you. Diseases are cool. Like, they're so cool. They're not cool to people. I just want to be clear about that.
Right.
But, like, the way that they function and stuff, like, that's my, oh God, I love it. I like, right now I'm reading a book about, like, immunology that's my bedtime reading. Like, is that nerdy?
You know what? Can I just say that I totally empathize with you, because even though it's not like in the areas of academia and medical journals, I like to look on Wikipedia and just read about different viruses and illnesses, and you just go through this downward spiral because it has the links to this virus, this bacteria, and I'm like, this is fascinating. So yeah, I do that. I read Wikipedia for my nerdy viral info, but yeah, I
love it. I love it.
I do something like that, but I'm mostly panicking what I'm reading. I'm like, so I have all of these things.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I become a hypochondriac after reading.
When do I die? Like, that's me.
Yeah.
Like, I can't.
No, I don't. Thank God that doesn't happen to me. I will more have things like when there was the Ebola scare in the U.S. and I was living in New York, I was like, what if I get it? And then I was like, well, if you got to go some way, that'd be cool. I mean, it's not cool. It's not cool, but it's like, I thought, well, then I could kind of, in my mind at least, document each stage of the illness. And I feel like this actually just makes me sound like a freak and not a nerd.
No. I'm just telling you.
Dedicate your body to science.
I get you.
Yes.
I totally get you.
I would totally do that. I totally donate my body to science. But also, like, I'm going to just confess this, that, when I watched Lost and Fringe, which I mention all the time because they were two really extremely important shows for me, and then also Monica Wusu-Breen worked on both of them, so it was like my head exploded when I realized that she was doing this show. But I kind of would refer to the characters on them as my friends.
Okay, I've done that.
That's
not normal.
I thought
that was normal. Okay.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Okay, I refer to them as my friends, and I will often repeat episodes just to have them on in the background as company. Wow.
Lisa Turtle was my best friend for years. Really? Lisa Turtle from Saved by the Bell. Oh yeah, and I would dress up like her.
Who you're talking about.
Yeah, like she was my friend in my head, so I completely get you on that.
Yeah, I'm still best friends with girlfriends.
Yeah, girlfriends too. Yep.
They're my friends. And I'd be hard pressed not to be like, hey, Joan! But, like, that's... You know what Joan I mean.
I'm obsessed with them. And I saw I've seen Tracy Ellis Ross a couple of times in person. passing by me or sitting by me. And like I sat next to her, like right, like the next table over from her for a good half an hour or something, at a restaurant. And she's meeting with somebody, and I was with someone I was dating at the time. And the whole time I'm just kind of like answering him in one-word answers and stuff, and just kind of like, oh yeah, I'll take some more salt on this, and we're all just like super internal. And then she got up and left, and then I was like, oh my God, it was her. Oh my God. And he's like, why didn't you say something? I would have said something to her. And I was like, because I would have lost it. Lost it. Like, there's certain people I can walk right up to and be like, hey, I really love your work. Super great. But after girlfriends, I don't think I can talk. I spoke once with, oh God, it's her name, Jill
Marie Jones.
I think so. Beautiful Tony? Ebony woman.
Tony Childs?
Girlfriend? Wait. Tony Childs.
Wait, why is all the names are escaping me at this point in time? At any rate, one of them who wasn't Tracy, and I saw her in an audition and said, I loved you on the show, and I miss you. But that was the last of the composure that I had. And I used it up on her. And so I can't see any of the other ones or I'm going to lose it.
Yeah, really quick. I just wanted to know, are there any new projects that you're working on right now?
Yes, I just finished shooting a short film that's part of a larger documentary on the queer contributions to the Harlem Renaissance called Congo Cabaret. And I'm very, very proud of having been involved in that. So I play a jazz singer who is rough around the edges, and you get to see her in her fullest in the club.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Parisa, so much for coming on our show. And can you tell our listeners where they can find you on social media?
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at Parisa F8 and on Instagram at Parisa Fitz-Henley, no hyphen. And I don't know how to tell you to find me on Snapchat because I don't really get on it that much. So
join the club.
Don't find me there.
Luke James is a 2-time Grammy-nominated singer-songwriter who began his musical career singing background for R&B artist Tyrese. He was later signed directly to J Records by Clive Davis himself, writing songs for musicians such as Chris Brown, Britney Spears, Carrie Hilson, and Justin Bieber. You may have seen him recently playing R&B singer Johnny Gill in the TV biopic of The New Edition story on BET, which aired back in February 21st of this year. Although we only got a portion of this segment, it was co-hosted and featured myself, KB, Kayla, Grace, and Joy.
I feel like that's good music.
Absolutely. Definitely can tell that in your sound and in your music and others. So much kudos to that. And kudos to the only child. I'm an only child too. So I definitely know that story and that funness there.
Yeah.
So yes, we know you've gotten the chance to do Johnny Gill. You've also been in Black Nativity. Are there other artists, actors, or other folks that you would like to collaborate with, whether it be in song or in film?
I love to work with Lee Daniels. I would love to work with Miss Ava. I would love to work with her.
Man, yeah.
I'd love to just work, create, build, create more content for Black people, for everyone, just continue to show our amazing abilities, I want to be a part of all of that if I can. So
nothing like putting in the hard work. I can appreciate that.
Work hard to work harder.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, hi. I feel really special because we were talking about a lot of joy. My name is Joy. So,
What's
hi.
Up? Hi.
So we talked a little bit about you playing Johnny Gill in a New Edition biopic, and then obviously you're planning to release music under kind of the album Joy. Is any of Johnny Gill's style, after kind of emulating him in New Edition's story, kind of imprinted in a little bit of your music?
I would say working with Jam and Lewis and Babyface, kind of just and being diving into that music, you know, like we listen to that music every day, all day. You know, we had to put ourselves into the era. You know, we didn't listen to nothing else unless we went bowling. So that I was surrounded by the New Jack Swing vibe and the just the 80s vibe, R&B music that like Jam and Lewis were doing. So that's inspired me as well. Yeah. Yes. That's inspired me. So Johnny Gill, yes. Also, by doing the movie, it kind of just, a lot of people didn't know I sang. So it kind of opened up a door, kind of an introduction that if I did release music, and for those that didn't know I was a singer before acting, they're pretty much expecting me to sing, and that's really truly what I want to do. I don't want to half-ass. I don't want to not sing. I don't want to dumb down shit. So by doing the movie, that just kind of opened up the door for myself and also for others, you know, because now you see what really gets people going. It wasn't just the movie, I mean the music that everyone knows, but it was the fact that we were really singing that stuff and we sound great, you know? And I think people really want that. I think in a couple years' time, you will see new generations, or the little kids who are watching it, who are probably seven right now, watching that movie or whatnot. Years down the line, they're gonna want to do music, and you're gonna hear the inspiration from that music. So yeah, it's inspired me, and you'll hear it in the new album.
Yeah. So kind of going along those lines, what I love about the title, outside of it being my name, is that throughout the press tour for New Edition, you and the other guys were talking a lot about Black Boy Joy. That was kind of your mantra throughout the whole press tour.
Yes.
So outside of singing and songwriting, what is your favorite way to express Black Boy Joy?
Wow. You know, I guess we look at what we do, and how we do what we do, in acting and trying to present a positive image, another side of a Black man, not just the thuggish and so on and so forth side that is always promoted, and the violent kind or whatnot that's always put out there. Like, just show a different type of guy who is respectful in a sense, yes, and just trying to make way, and good guys, you know. And right now, I guess my walk, being expressive with my walk and my music and my acting, and just pursuing my own life and dreams, and promoting that everyone else find their own dream and pursue that by any means necessary with love. I think that's the way I'm doing it. I think that's the way we all are doing it. I would like to do more though, but there comes time for that, you know? Right now it's just work. Eventually I'll be able to sit down and figure out foundations and stuff like that. I would like to do things I would like to do in New Orleans. Give back to my community in a sense, in a way. Even create programs like for arts, you know, for kids to have an outlet to express themselves. Those are my dreams, and that those are goals as well. But right now I can just be me as much as possible and support my brothers around me that are doing great things. And I feel like that's another way of showing Black Boy Joy.
This is Kayla. So
You've touched on it a little bit, but do you have different processes you take yourself through when preparing for an acting role versus getting ready to head to the recording studio to record?
Yeah. Well, I guess I don't. So I have for New Edition, I created a character board, working with my acting coach, Richard Lawson. We created a character board, which basically because we don't, when shooting stuff, we don't shoot things like back to back as it is in the paper in the script. It's like sometimes it's definitely out of order. So in this movie we were playing different. I had to play 18, 20s, 30s, right? But all three have different mindsets, different walks, a different smile, different way they answer, different way they look at things, they sing, how they're around. So like when I first come in with that damn wig on, I look sick. Anyway, when I come in with that wig on, that's young Johnny. That's open Johnny, just excited to be here, Johnny. He's truly a fan. Weed is never around. Johnny is not around weed. Johnny comes from the church. Johnny walks around with a briefcase. He wears those boots. He has that Jerry curl, and he sings with his girlfriend. That's what Johnny does. So he's that kind of guy. But then next time you see Johnny, Johnny's in the studio with the guys, and the demeanor has changed. He's older. Things didn't go quite as well as he wanted in his career, but he's still going. He's signed to MCA. He's got a new attitude that he's got to be in this group. It's just different. It's different mindsets. So the character board kind of helps me dive into that when we're not doing it in order. So different things I use, but most times I do a character board for projects just to be on point every day,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I hope I answered that.
Yeah, no, you did. So we are obviously Black Girl Nerds, and no one geeky, nerdy person is alike. So we all have our different vices, whether it be comic books or TV or film. What do you geek out over?
Oh, shoot. What do I geek out over? I really like music. I don't know. I really, 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 really love music. I don't know. That's just really what I geek out over. That's always been it. I'm sure it was something different when I was younger, before I knew singing was what the girls liked. And you know what? Actually, it was sax. I used to play the saxophone. Well, I play the saxophone now, but I used to think I was going to be a jazz player, and I was I guess what you would call a jazz geek. Yeah. And before that, I thought I was going to be Wolverine or something. So yeah, that's how that went.
I'm saying, what?
Well, yeah, make that crossover. I see y'all pushing the Storm. They gotta give Storm her own thing, man. That's like, I mean, there's so many people. There's Thrasher. There's Thrasher is a what's his name? It's a black kid. He was a skateboarder. He wore like a helmet, and he had these like batons. That's what he kicked people's asses with. But like his skateboard, he could like shoot up he roof hopped with his skateboard. But he was a black kid though. Mm-hmm. And like when I was looking at that, in my neighborhood, you was riding a skateboard. That wasn't, well, they made you feel like that wasn't cool. Right. The neighborhood at the time made you feel like that wasn't cool to do. But like, I don't know, that I always was like, man, I'm gonna ride a skateboard as soon as I get the hell up out of here.
That's a very Louisiana, Mississippi, like, because I'm from Mississippi, that's a very Louisiana, Mississippi thing. Certain things are just not cool to do. And I was a skateboarder, and that was not cool to do.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my God. It's like, and I was petrified to get on a skateboard and falling in front of anybody. Because, they love the joke and they laugh the loudest. I mean, it's then they make jokes about that's why black people shouldn't be on a skateboard, yada yada, stuff like that. Man, skateboard is everything. It's everything. You're just coasting out there. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, that was life. This is life now. Yeah. I'm playing Injustice with my brother. I'm not playing it right now because I promised you guys I'd give you my undivided attention. Pretty much why I'm long-winded. And yeah. But yeah, I'm here with my brother Ro. Y'all know Ro James?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's here. Well, he just Ro. It's hilarious. Ro. They said, "What's up?" The ladies.
Hello.
Wow.
What's up? How you doing?
Wonderful.
Good. How are you?
Great.
Bro, I love you already knew that. Just want to let you know that right now.
Hey. I was in the studio with Ro till 3, 4 in the morning while he recorded that. I swear that was in my dreams. My dreams. Oh man, it killed me.
You listened to that
From mad. Oh, so long. Listen to that forever.
Before people even heard it.
Yeah.
But yeah, nice to meet you guys.
Likewise.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. So yeah, it's my family. We're here chilling, just kicking it, and I'm talking to y'all. Oh yeah.
Can't beat that.
You cannot beat it. You cannot beat it. I am a fan of you ladies, and I really appreciate what y'all do, and y'all keep me informed because I don't really look at a lot of stuff. So, but I look at y'all. So, thank you.
Thank you, Luke. We really appreciate talking to you, and for our listeners out there that want to learn more about your work, where can they find you on the interwebs, and give us your social media shout outs?
Well, there's a thing called Google. You just type in Luke James.
That's
it. Everything is going to pop up. Even stuff I didn't even know I had out there is going to pop up. Wolf James, that's me. Wolf James on Instagram. Who is Luke James on Twitter? Anything else? Yeah, I don't know, but hey, if it's telling you where my show is and I'm there actually, then it's good. That's cool. Yeah. That's all I got.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us. This is fantastic.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I hope I wasn't long-winded.
Not at all.
Not at all.
It was perfect. Fantastic. Thank you, Luke. I really appreciate it.
No, I really appreciate it. We were playing DM tag for a minute, and here we are. Thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you.
Thanks for bringing some joy to Black Girl Nerds.
Over at San Diego Comic-Con, this annual panel about comics journalism talks about the how-tos of how to break in, how to act professionally, and how to make money against all odds. In this particular segment, I talk about my work with Black Girl Nerds and my other podcast called Misty Nights Uninformed Afro. In this panel features Alexander Liu of Comics Beat, Graeme McMillan of The Hollywood Reporter, and Heidi MacDonald of Comics Beat, editor-in-chief and moderator.
So I am Heidi MacDonald, the editor-in-chief of Comics Beat at comicsbeat.com. I also work for Publishers Weekly. I write for various magazines, but the Beat in various forms, but pretty much only as the Beat, actually. Maybe different URLs, has been around since July 4th, 2004. So more than 13 years. Is that 13 years? Yes. Seems like 8. And Graeme was around when I was doing it. But when I'm all choked up, Alex, why don't you introduce yourself?
So my name is Alex. I'm the managing editor of the Comics Beat.
I am essentially a baby Lewis. I graduated from college like 2 years ago. So I'm saying that you should trust me, but you shouldn't really trust me.
You haven't sold out. We should totally trust you. Heidi and I are the ones to be nervous about it.
Graeme?
My name's Graeme McMillan. I write for The Hollywood Reporter and Wired and Playboy, and before that I've written for every single comic site apart from Movie.
That's right. You've never. And Jamie?
My name is Jamie Broadnax. I'm the managing editor and founder of blackgirlnerds.com. Hence the shirt, Black Girl Nerds. And I talk about comics, gaming, pop culture, TV, film type stuff. I also have a weekly podcast. And I have a book coming out next year by the same name, Black Girl Nerds.
Yay! Awesome. So anyway, so Graeme and I are veterans of the blogging wars. We both had blogs. You had the orange blogger blog with the orange thing.
I have Blogspot. Yeah. I was thinking that this morning. Can you imagine anyone getting started as a journalist now with a Blogspot thing? That's unthinkable now.
I know. But I've actually had this conversation with a few people, and actually a lot of people in comics got their start as journalists, so writing about comics, reviewers. Paul Levis, former publisher and president of DC Comics, his start at 13. He was publishing a comics fanzine. Gary Groth and Kim Thompson were teenage. They put on conventions, which actually is something Jamie's also involved in, and put out the Comics Journal, and now they run Fantagraphics. In Europe, I was fascinated to find out that both Glénat Publishing and Delcourt Publishing, which are two of the biggest publishers, Jacques Glénat, the owner of Glénat, and Guy Delcourt, the owner of Delcourt, they both got their start as putting out fanzines back in
Alan Moore got his start.
Alan Moore got his start putting out fanzines. Alex Segura was supposed to be with us here. He got he was a newspaper journalist. He was also a blogger during the great days, and now he's a VP at Archie Comics and does all sorts of stuff there. So obviously, it is a good career path in some ways if you can just survive long enough.
What have you done wrong then?
Yeah, I know. I really feel like I've been doing the same thing for 13 years without really any progression or progress. No, I mean, that's not true. I think when I was a kid, somewhere in my mind, I said, well, it's my dream job. And I said, well, I'd like to be on a mass means of communication that can meet anyone in the world, and I can write about whatever I want every morning when I wake up. And so...
Good job.
Yeah, exactly. So, the trick is just finding some people to read it. But let's talk a little bit about our origins. That's always good. And Jamie, I mean, I'm so thrilled that you could be on this panel because I tried to have you last year and there was a scheduling conflict. But I'm just so admiring of how you have taken your brand, but I mean, it's such a great site. So anyway, how did you do it? Where do you come from? Why?
Yeah. And it's crazy to think that it is a brand now, because really it just started off as a blog. And that was initiated by a Google search that I did back in February 1st of 2012. I just put in the search term Black Girl Nerds just to see if there's any kind of content on the web that spoke to women like me, and nothing came up, which was just very surprising to me. I even Googled on Google Images Black Girl Nerds, and I saw images of white women with glasses with black frames coming up. So I'm like, am I a unicorn? Am I like some mythical creature? So yeah, I decided that night, I had had some blogging experience. I ran a film blog for many years. And at that point, I just decided to go ahead and put up Black Girl Nerds. And in hindsight, that was pretty genius SEO-wise, because if you type that in, site comes right back up. But yeah, it evolved into this online community, because at first it was just about my personal rants and raves about just all things in geek culture. And then I had women that would peruse the site and was like, hey, I'm an author. I would love to write and contribute for your site. So I had published authors reaching out to me because they never found a space like this that really spoke to them. And yeah, now it's no longer about, my personal rants and raves. It's about all of these different women's perspectives. And it's sort of evolved into this entertainment website where we go to places like this and, we get to cover really cool events, either TV shows or movie properties or just other panels that speak to women of color in comics and women of color in this subculture. So I've been doing that now for the last 5 years.
Wonderful. That's great. Graeme?
My story is nowhere near as interesting and inspiring. Let's see, how far back do you want to go for the origin?
Well, let's talk about...
the way back when?
Yeah, let's
I
go
was
the way back
bored
when.
in my day job. I had come to America to get married, and I'd be working in a call centre, and I was very bored. And the Comics Internet was just starting, because this was, 2002?
Yeah, the olden days, yeah.
And so I started a site called Fanboy Rampage, because I thought lots of people on message boards were saying dumb things and I could make fun of them. And that worked. And for 2 years, that worked. You wrote a week of Fanboy Rampage when I went on vacation once.
That's right, I did, yeah.
And people came because, honestly, it was so early, there was nowhere else to go. And I really did luck out in being around at the start.
But I want to hear how you got from there to Hollywood Reporter. Now, are you...
Because I kept saying yes, is the short version. Yeah. I was in San Francisco. Annalene Ewens was a writer for the local SF Weekly at the time. She reached out because she was also nerdy and snarky, and it was literally a, I think you're funny, I think you're funny too, why don't we meet up type thing. And she was launching I9 for Gawker Media at the time, and so I got onto that. And then after doing 2 years at Gawker Media, I went to Time for 2 years, and basically things just kept happening.
Yeah, Time had a blog. Time had a geeky blog.
Time had a blog called Techland, which nobody remembers anymore. Techland, before it launched, was actually called Nerd World. And then Time Magazine decided Nerd World would never be a name for a website. And really, you should have kept it, because that was available back then. That would have been a thing. But yeah, people kept asking me to do things, and I kept saying yes, which is how I eventually ended up in Hollywood.
Now, are you an actual employee of the Hollywood Reporter?
No, I still write for Wired and
Right, so you're freelance. You're a freelance.
Anyone who says, do you want to do something interesting, I will inevitably say yes.
That's great. Well, it just started with a blog. Alex, why? You had your whole world in front of you.
Why? Why did you take this terrible decision? This is an intervention.
Yeah,
no, I feel like every good story is like a dark night of the soul, right? Like, I had when I was back in college, summer of my junior year, I was interning for Paper Cuts, which is a graphic novel publishing company, and I really had fun there. But like, I was having like some rough stuff going on personally. I was wondering like, oh God, I'm going to graduate here. I'm going to live my life. And so I was at New York Comic-Con, and I was sitting on these stairs, and like I was just thinking to myself, wow, in a year from now, I'm going to be homeless in New York City. This is gonna be terrible. But there was a comics journalism panel, like this one, and I went over there, and I saw Heidi, I saw Annie Shannon, who's at Lady Cool, and a couple other folks. And at the end of it, I was like, I'm an English major writing a thesis about Grant Morrison and metafictional devices. I can totally write news. So I went up and talked to Heidi, and she thought that was a good idea somehow. And ever since then, I've had a lot of fun with it. I think it's really interesting, right, to like be a part of this community, because I didn't ever realize how open it would be. I always thought it was this very sort of like insular island sort of thing, but like you took me on right away.
Well, actually, I remember I said email me afterwards, and then I lost your email for I think it was 6 months.
6 months, yeah.
But I have never forgotten that, because I don't know anyone inspiring in this room, but if you come up to me after the panel and say, I want to write for the Beat, I'll tell you, email me, and I won't forget you, but it might be 6 months, okay? So, because I remember asking me, I was like, oh, I got to email the guy, and then I did, and then
Like, I mean, in a way, it was kind of helpful because I ended up writing another site for.
Well, you did. You worked because there were others. Was it comics?
Comics. Bulletin. I was looking for primarily.
Yeah. And now, I mean, you've written for the MNT. I mean, other sites as well. So, while keeping you have a day job, right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Okay. So, but my own origin was goes back to the 80s. So, But, well, there was only print then. There was no internet. So I started writing I always wanted to be a writer, and I started writing, but I loved comics, and I wanted to write. I was very inspired by the Comics Journal, which was this kind of erudite and angry, like the first kind of let's rip it open, let's tear this thing down and build it up again kind of attitude. So I wrote some reviews for them, and then I wrote for some other print fanzines at the time, like the Comics Buyer's Guide and Amazing Heroes. A lot of people remember that. And then I got into the comics industry. I mean, I did go work for Disney. I edited comics for them. Then I worked with DC. I edited comics for them. And then that ended, and I was like, let me return to my roots as a journalist. And then the internet was there, so my childhood dream was able to come true. So there was that. Now, I guess, people, last year we had this panel, like I say, I always have different people on it, except for Graeme, who will always fill in. But, and I think one question that has always come up at the panel is, do you want to be a creator? Do you want to make comics? And, for me, the answer is simple. Been there, done that. So, this is not a path for me, but as I said at the top, it can be a path to creating other things. So, I mean, what are some, does anyone else here aspire to make comics, or?
I don't consider myself a comics writer or someone that aspires to it, but what I've done is taken some of my experience in podcasting and did that by creating a superheroine podcast called Misty Knight's Uninformed Afro.
It's the best title ever.
And it's about Black superheroines. And that started because my co-host, Stephanie Williams, you've got to follow her on Twitter. She's got the best Twitter account in the world. Steph_I_Will. She put out this tweet saying, where are all the Black superheroines? And just like this influx of like dude bros came into her mentions and, kind of geek-splaining her about all of these superheroines and kind of naming the obvious ones. And there wasn't that many. And it just made me think, like, how many people out there really know about these Black superheroines, and how much of these Black superheroines' origin stories and their narratives do they know about? So I decided to do this podcast, and I feel really good about it because for the first time, Black women are talking about these characters that were owned and created essentially by white guys, but we're sort of putting our own narrative into their stories and bringing a little bit of nuance and understanding more perspective about these characters that hasn't really been discussed before. So one of the really cool things about our episodes is we sort of have this motif around hair. So the first episode is about Storm, right? I mean, when you think of a Black superheroine, that's the first one you think of automatically, Aurora Monroe. And the first episode was called Storm Silk Press. So it's all around, and I give Stephanie full credit for this, but it's all sort of around the theme of hair. And we're now in season 2, we're recording. We just did an episode on Zula Hendricks from Aliens Defiance, which, by the way, you should check it out. It's a 12-issue series. It's fantastic, based off of the Aliens franchise. But it was just really great to learn more about these characters, more than just, the way they look on a page or the way you see them as like a cutout, on a movie poster somewhere. Because some of us only know about Storm either from the cartoons, the X-Men animated series, or maybe a few runs of X-Men, or unfortunately from the movies. But we really dive into each of these women's stories and kind of give our own perspectives of how we think their characters should play out and what we think of how these women should think. So I guess in a way, that's sort of my own creative art in the comics field is doing that podcast.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You might get sucked in. I know some of these guys in there.
People have asked me, do you want to write comics? I don't know. I would love to, but I don't know if I'd be good at it.
But I mean, yeah, if it's not what, you do a lot of things, so, it's not necessarily that you have to do more things. How about you, Graeme? Let's get the secret out there. Let's lay it on the table.
You say that like I have a secret. I don't want to make comics. I, like many people who read comics, I think I went through the childhood teenager drama of I want to grow up and become a comic artist. And then I went to art school, and then I realized that was a very bad idea. I did art school, I did teaching in art school for 2 years, and then I never wanted to draw ever again. But that was where I discovered I liked writing. And so that's where I moved from, I don't want to draw comics to, I also don't want to write comics. Because somewhere along the way I got to know lots of comic creators, and I know what they go through, and I could not do it. I just know that I did not have those skills.
Yeah, especially now, like you have to be.
You have to do everything every 2 weeks. And
So when I was doing all my stuff, it's amazing to hear Jamie's story, because when I was doing my stuff, like The Beat has always been read by a lot of people in the entertainment industry and, different levels. And, when I first started doing it, I got so much attention for doing it. And, I was always talking to other people about starting a news site, and they would pay me lots of money and this awesome internet thing. And, sadly for my bank account, it never worked out, but happily for my, heartache, it absolutely the right decision.
You own your content.
I do.
I speak of someone who has 15 years in the internet and doesn't own content.
Well,
and a lot of it has disappeared because of that.
Always own your own stuff. But they would specifically say, I was like, I want to do a site like, Nerd Woman or Nerd Queen. I'm like, nerd and geek are really negative words for advertisers. We just don't want to be associated with that at all. And, I was like, I started trying to start a site that had geek in there. I was like, you know what, our ad team just doesn't want to be associated with that. I'm like, all right, whatever. That was like 10 years ago. And like now it's like, how many ways can you say the word nerd? Or how many ways can you, there's 3 different businesses called Geek Week, I think, or Geek Chic. I mean, there's tons of different things. And, how the worm has turned. But anyway, Alex, how about you?
Do I want to make comments?
Yeah.
That's the question. I don't know. I mean, like, when I first got into this, I really had no idea what I wanted to do, because, like, I guess if you're being generous, you can call me like a polyglot, because I do like a lot of different artistic things, but like I'm more like a dilettante. Like I'm not really good at anything. I write, I draw, I edit, I do graphic design, yada yada yada. But like, I think what I've realized over the years is that like what I really like to do in the end is I like to I love comics. Like I want to push good content to people. Like that's what I see myself as. Like whether or not that means becoming an editor, whether or not that means going into marketing, or whether or not that means staying here in journalism. Like as long as I can get good content to people, like I would like to do that. And I have been like considering like jumping into the industry, and that's been like a whole thing. But that's like a long-term play, right? Like for now, I really like doing this stuff, like writing articles every week, reviewing comics, talking about what's coming up, interviewing creators. Like that's a dream come true for me.
Yeah. Well, it is. It's a lot of fun, definitely. And you certainly get tested here at Comic-Con. But let's talk, this question comes up all the time, though, when I do these panels. And, I don't think there's anything wrong with going from writing about stuff to becoming a professional in that field. Obviously I did it myself, so, because probably I have actually the most experience in the actual comics industry here on this panel, but what do you think there are pitfalls for that? I mean, do you see people getting into maybe writing about stuff who really have their goal to be, to be making comics or to be making stuff, and maybe there's a problem there? Are there pitfalls?
I think it's certainly like a delicate balance to sort of strike, right? Because, even if you're not planning on like getting into the industry, you have to maintain these relationships with different publishers and stuff like that. Like, and if you say the wrong thing, who knows what might happen, But I don't know. You've been in this industry a lot longer than I have, and you've seen like relationships come and go, rise and fall. Like, how has it been like for you?
I think I was always, my first job actually in the comics industry was at Disney, and I was working for Disney Comics. I was Mark Wolfman's assistant, and this is like 91. So, everybody liked my writing. It was easy. I'll be honest, it was very, very easy for me to get attention and stand out because I was one of only like 5 women who wrote about stuff, which is mind-boggling also. So that I got a lot of attention for. And, I think my name...
You were also fearless. You were not afraid to put your opinion out there.
Well, I wasn't?
You didn't seem to be. I definitely remember that from, like, way back when. even before the Beat.
Yeah, I guess that's right. I don't even see it that way. I guess I've never been afraid of speaking my mind, though, I will say. You know what, I tell the story sometimes, but how I got the job at Disney was you had to pass an editorial test. And so Mark gave me a Rescue Rangers story outline to read, because we did Disney Adventure Comics. So we did Disney Afternoon, Rescue Rangers, Tailspin, DuckTales, all that great stuff.
All the afternoon shows.
Yeah, right. I know, which are coming back, which is actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
So there's the Rescue Rangers plot, and he says, tell me what you think of this story. And so I went home and I read it. I was like, well, this story is shit. And I know I shouldn't have said that, but anyway, I don't see too many. Anyway, the story is very poor, very poor. And so I wrote a critique, and I said, I don't like this story. There's no development, and like Dale, Gadget wouldn't do that. Something like that. And so then Marv did hire me later on. He said, you were the only person who criticized the story. Everyone else said it was a great story. So, that's really how I got the job, is by not being afraid to criticize things. So, or at least, trying to analyze things. But I don't know. I think I personally see a lot of cheerleaders out there sometimes, right? And sometimes I do think that they're being cheerleaders.
I think you can tell the people who want to work in the industry. Because I think you can see people who really try and cultivate relationships with publishers and never say anything negative at all.
Yeah.
And sometimes things are just bad, and they're bad, and that even the people making it are kind of like, I really needed the paycheck. Please don't judge me too harsh. I mean, you see someone going, this is the greatest comic that's ever been published, you guys. I get suspicious. I think you're just trying to be nice now. You're just trying to get their attention and go, look at me, I love your stuff.
Yeah. Or get that, quote. So.
Or get an exclusive for later down the line.
No, I mean, Jamie, you have a ton of writers, and some of them are so amazing, actually. Is that ever a problem for you, do you think, or?
No, I think what we try to do is just share honest perspectives of what we think is right and what we think is not right with comics. And we try to be as honest with our opinions as we can. But I think for the industry, when I see tweets from comic book artists and writers, and they get super angry about the criticisms that we kind of put their feet to the fire on. I'm not going to say any names, but there was a re cover that happened. The artist wasn't happy about it. But it's important that, especially if it's a depiction of a 15-year-old black girl, and black women have concerns of this character being hypersexualized, that you listen to what these women are saying and not get into your feelings about it. So that's what we try to do, is just, pay attention to what we're saying. Like, we're reading these books too. For some of these artists and writers, they think that there was a time where only a specific demographic of people were paying attention, and that's definitely not the case. So I know I'm kind of meandering off from what you're talking about.
That's okay. This is a freewheeling panel.
But I mean, that's just what's really important in our platform, is that, we talk about how important it is to see ourselves in this art.
Right. Go ahead, Graeme.
I was going to say something that not only comics but also movies and other industries are really bad at, is recognizing the difference between criticism to be mean and constructive criticism. And there comes a point where you should just shut up and listen, because the people you're trying to create the work for are saying, I know you're trying to do the right thing, but this is problematic.
Right.
I've had, at outlets that I don't work for, so I feel I can say this, but I'm not going to say which company it was, I've had stories killed because the outlets want to maintain good relationships with companies. And they're not even bad stories. It's stories that might say, like, this particular comic was a problem, but they're now doing this. But even that this was a problem, we'll get something out of it.
Well, I know there was a story on the Beat today where somebody wrote something that he wasn't supposed to. I don't know if you saw that. We have our little, messaging system. Like, he went to some preview and quoted someone, and then they're like, oh, you weren't supposed to quote that. And I'm like, well, all right, I haven't actually seen, I haven't had time this morning to see what the situation is. I would actually say for your site, Jamie, I would say it's the opposite. I would hope that more people pay attention to the voices on your site, and that, it does become a launching pad for people to get into the industry, because we really absolutely need to have, more women of color involved in comics because, I mean, to think that even 5 years ago, if you Googled Black Girl Nerds, nothing came up is mind-boggling.
It's crazy, and that's why in addition to obviously writing reviews about the big two, we really do focus on those independent comic book creators. Regine Sawyer, a good friend of mine, she's the owner of Women in Comics Collective, and they have a booth. If you want to check that out, it's 900 H09, I think. But it's a team of Black women and women of color that are artists, writers, editors, doing their own comics. Regine owns her own comic book company, so it's important for us to highlight those women too and those artists that are putting out their own books and not subscribing to, I guess, what the big two thinks is supposed to be like the status quo of what comics are supposed to be about, white male superheroes, but showing all different kinds of superheroines of all different kind of backgrounds. And we've interviewed so many people on the website and on the podcast that are great creators, and it's really important. And we've also interviewed creators that do work for the big two, but are creators of color, like Ta-Nehisi Coates. So it's really great to have a platform where I also, as a journalist, get to learn from so many of these folks.
Yeah, that's fantastic. No, if anybody out there has any questions, also just throw up your arm. So, like I said, it's a pretty freewheeling. Graeme, what? Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. Hi, Judy. I was just wondering, when you're talking about being critical, and I run a blog, and we don't really do so much of comics as TV and movies and stuff, but talking about critical fandom and like digging deep into the themes and what those are trying to say. Do you see pushback in like even settings like something like Comic-Con, where they really need to have the big two coming, they need to have these big studios coming, and so maybe they don't want to give a platform for you to be open and honest completely with your critiques, and how do you kind of navigate the access and staying true to,
Well, that's an ongoing issue,
Yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you want to be fair. Maybe that I don't know what happened this month. With the story. Like I haven't had a chance to look, but I'm just saying now this is an issue that I need to go look into and make sure that my guy. I'm going to back up my guy, but I have to make sure that that's proper, because you could really screw up a lot of things, and I certainly have screwed up many things in my life too. So I think it just. It's funny you talk about coming into the, mentions now on Twitter and all that. When I was a little kid, there was, and I wrote really these snarky reviews that Graeme remembers and I don't. I'd be at a con and people would come up to me and say, in fact, I'll name names. It was like, I was very critical of the X-Men because that's my favorite comic. And then it just went down the tubes that I wrote, Chris Tarman's lost it. And like, he was really nasty to me at a con, He's like, I didn't like what you wrote. And of course, I was crushed inside, but then I was like, I still didn't like X-Men. So, it was a learning experience. And, then years pass, and now I'm on a panel, and it's fine. It's all what, it's just like, so I say this on every panel. Every year we do this panel, and every time I always say this. It's like, if you are writing, you must never write something you wouldn't say to a person's face. And that goes both ways. That means, like, if you want to be buddies with this person, you write something that you wouldn't say to their face, then don't do that. And it also means, like, if you're going to be honest about it, then don't seek out that person. It's like, just be prepared. You got to be prepared. Everyone can see it. So.
I have a story about that.
Yeah.
At my first Comic-Con for IO9, I was doing an interview with an editor-in-chief of a comic company that I will not name, but he's not editor-in-chief anymore. And I've been critical of the company, and the first 20 minutes of the interview was him shouting at me and telling me that I was a terrible human being for daring to criticize his company. And then as soon as the recorder went on, he was the sweetest, most polite guy.
I think I can guess who that was.
And then as soon as the tape recorder went off, he was back to berating me. And I really had a conflict about it. Do I run the bit where he's nice? Or do I actually say he shouted at me for 20 minutes and told me I was garbage? And in that case, my editors made the decision for me because I wrote a piece and things were taken out. And what I've found since then is that having an outlet where they will have a point of view and be willing to support you is really valuable. Yeah. So that if you genuinely believe that something is irresponsible or immoral or just plain bad, and you can make the case, and they will back you up on it, it's wonderful, as opposed to them saying, well, we have advertising to think about, and we really don't want to get into that.
Yeah. No, so, I mean, it's really just a juggling act. I mean, I think it's just, I mean, for me, I come definitely from like a little older background where I'm more like, you come at me, I'll just, pop you with my ring. So, and, which I'm afforded to be because I'm more privileged, and so I recognize that. But you gotta just be ethical, treat people the way you would want to be treated. And it's a juggling act.
So I've got a question based on that for everyone here.
Yeah.
Do you feel a responsibility as a journalist to stand up for things like that? If there are people making bad work or, doing irresponsible portrayals of people, do you feel a responsibility to call it out? Because we have a voice that
I mean, if there's something that's not right, that doesn't stick with our community, then we call it out on social media. We write editorials about it. I think it's important to, again, hold people's feet to the fire because people do pay attention. With that whole image backlash, with that terrible cover. We wrote an article, one of my writers who's a Black queer woman felt like she didn't feel safe reading, these image books. So it's important because there's a contingent of folks out there that feel like their voices aren't heard and feel like no one's listening to them. And until they read that article, until they hear that podcast episode, then they feel like there's someone out there that's finally, speaking to them and telling their story. So yeah, I definitely think it's important.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to talk about it because we had discussions about this cover in particular, and we ended up not writing about it because.
Well, I started a whole big long thing because I like to do the coldest takes ever, so I will probably still put something out about it, but
like initially
we did not do a hot take on it.
And we did that because we didn't think that cover would get as much play as long as fewer people talked about it.
I think that was our initial thought, but I think then for me the cover became. Where was it? Actually, Mary Sue had really the first really great piece, and the piece that you guys ran was also so good. But these two really pointed out that not speaking up, I later felt wasn't the right thing to do because I just don't think, anyone who can't understand the difference between why don't you not do this? Oh, by the way. Did you know that people of color are killed and sexually mutilated? I mean, geez, isn't that awesome? Wow, did not know that. Of course they do. So, who are you telling this to?
Right.
And it wasn't a very good cover. That's the thing. It wasn't a very good cover.
It's so in your face about it, too. I mean, we have to polybag, certain other covers, we don't polybag this. This is just out there for you to, walk into the shop and see.
Yeah, I will say, to switch it around the other way, though, I will say that sometimes, having been in the industry and having seen the sausage made, I do feel like I sympathize sometimes. Not on that cover, because that I don't get that. I do get it because I did a book with Howard Chaykin. I did a book called Angel and the Ape with Howard Chaykin, and I know Howard very well, so I actually do know how that cover came from. But maybe not to say here, but. There was another cover that came out, and Women Write About Comics, which is another awesome, wonderful Eisner-nominated site. They did a whole roundtable, and it wasn't because, it wasn't like the famous Riri Williams one. It was one that didn't get as much attention. And when I looked at it, it was obvious that the artist had 5 minutes to draw it, and it was just a really bad cover, and his art wasn't very good. And then, the roundtable spent whole round table talking about what the cover meant and this and that, which was
germane, but it was also like, the bigger issue was, why did this guy have 10 minutes to draw a really bad offensive cover, you know? I mean, I think if he'd had 20 minutes, it would have been a better cover, but, so I think, and that wasn't even mentioned at all. It wasn't mentioned at all, like, oh, this is so rushed, you know, why did that happen? So I think sometimes those issues come up, but, you know, so maybe having some of those insights are good, but I think it's more that there's just, people don't listen. You know, I mean, that's really it. I don't know.
That's the thing, right? I guess, like, because we live in such a divided time, because, like, people get offended when you make, like, an objective criticism of their work, you know, like, how do you think that we can criticize people in a way that they don't feel like they're actively being attacked, but they do feel compelled to change things?
Well, some people can. Some people will hear any criticism as, why are you trying to censor me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, no matter what.
Right.
The criticism can be, I love your work, I love your comic, maybe this shouldn't be the cover.
Especially if they're like older, entitled people that have never had.
There's an entire generation of people that you could say anything. Mm-hmm. Literally, I've loved everything you've done, but maybe not this. And they'll hear it as, why are you hating me?
Right.
You know,
right.
It's insane.
I mean, I guess to answer your question, probably offering, you know, answers to those criticisms, like this is what you should do instead of just making it about, well, this is just wrong. Then maybe people won't take it as offensively. But I mean, there's no way to get around it. People are gonna be in their feelings about it no matter what.
Yeah. And you know, I think the thing about the Howard Chaykin book that really was most mind-boggling was when he was he did the one interview and he was like, well, you know, nobody has read this book and they should read it, you know. Well, I did read it actually, and I that's why I wanted to do my longer take, because I wanted to really take it all into account. But then he said, well, have you read any of the criticisms? He's like, no, I never read any criticisms of my work. So you know, like what's, you know, it's a two-way street, people.
Also, it's a cover. A cover is there to sell your book.
But I
don't say, have you read the book? No, your cover is there to sell it.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, I'm not a comic book writer, but I've been criticized when I ran editorials on my site that people didn't like, it didn't sit well with them. And I learned from that. Like, I guess I don't take criticism as something that's like an infringement upon my creativity. You know, as a writer.
We exist on the internet, we can't. There's so much out there.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've got to grow. Like, that's a whole part of this journey, is to learn something new, get different perspectives, and kind of soak up that new information and grow and evolve from that. So, I don't know, call me crazy.
Any questions out there? So, for our fine panel? I don't know, what is that? Everybody's coming in, looks like it's some sort of,
there's a storm
Zelda,
through our midst.
Nintendo, you guys here for some kind of Nintendo panel? Just guessing, I don't know.
Since you guys are on the topic of criticism, about how much is too much reading your criticism as far as that goes? Because with the internet, everybody has a voice, social media, everybody has a voice as far as what they want to say. As far as where you obsess over reading your criticism go, I mean, would you dial back and kind of take a breather from that?
I think that critics in general can be like writers or artists of any other kind. You know, there are a lot of critics out there, but when you read someone from a certain outlet or across multiple outlets over time, you start to realize, oh, this person has a perspective that I enjoy. Oh, this person has like criticisms, comments, likes, and dislikes that I agree with or disagree with. And then you sort of take it through that context lens. Like, I don't think it makes sense, at least in the current climate, to look at specific outlets and take their comments as like, oh, this is the Beats thing, like, or like, oh, this is like a Hollywood Reporter's take. It's more like, this is this person at Hollywood Reporter or the Beats take, and you know, I go from there.
Yeah, I mean, on the Beat we have like two people who, well, actually you're right, Chris, but you do specifically DC. Like, everybody has like kind of beats that they cover on the Beat, but you know, like you cover DC, we have a writer who covers Marvel, and then we have a writer named John Seven, which he legally changed his name to Seven, and he reviews a lot of different kinds of material. He reviews a lot of graphic novels, some indie stuff, and then we have a guy who also reviews like really small press stuff. So, and they all know their areas, that's what they're passionate about. And so after a while, you get to know their taste. I do think in general, there's a real dearth of like there's not very many writers about comics. They'll be like, oh, here's, my Wednesday haul. And I'm like, oh, I gotta see what this person thinks of, this week's comics. I read a lot about comics and a lot of comics. So that could also be part of mine, but, there's good critics and there's bad critics, definitely. And I think it's just you have to keep, you can sometimes tell very quickly if it's good or bad, but I'm not a big on the gushers, I do like to read people who have more insight, than just, it was 9 out of 10.
I find the longer I do this, gushing seems not useful to do. Because you can just say, I love this, and then...
People don't...
That's not true, unless it's something no one's talking about.
People don't take it very seriously when you say, I love this. It's really much harder. Unfortunately, studies show this. Like, people are much more compelled by negative emotions. It's very unfortunate for the human race in general. But it's like, that's why, when people are like, I hate, this horrible cover came out, and then just like, within 10 minutes, the entire internet is in flames. I wish that would happen with like, this is, maybe it did with Wonder Woman, that kind of caught fire a little bit, like, oh, I love this, I'm crying, but it's really hard to get a groundswell for things that are, positive, unless it's like, a Wonder Woman movie you've been waiting 60 years for, I guess.
Yeah, and Black Panther, people
are
crazy over
Black
Panther.
That actually is true. That is true.
Everything goes viral when you talk about Black Panther on the internet, so folks are ready for it.
Yeah. But if there's something I really like, I find it's more useful to do an interview or do something else to draw attention to the piece, rather than do a review that just says, I think this is good.
Yeah, I kind of agree, but I want to have like, to me it's more, I think there's so many criticisms about comics criticism that are just like, here's the plot and, I really liked Robin or something like that. But, it's like to really dig into what the artist is trying to say and what the context for it is. I don't know. I'm big on context. That's really, I think, one of the things that the beat I'm always stressing, right? Is context.
Yeah.
Everything's context. So
I think it's important. Like, if you legitimately like something, I don't see the reason why you shouldn't give it like a positive review or anything. Because there's no such thing as a perfect work of art. I've seen Baby Driver 3 times. I will love that movie to death, but like, I can see the problems with it. I know exactly why I don't like it. So, if you can like write that kind of review, if you can say, hey, I love this thing, this is why I love it, but this is what's wrong with it as well, why not?
Yeah.
But you should see it anyway.
Any other questions out there?
Yeah, I find new angles to approach a story that everybody's writing about.
How do you find new angles to approach a story that everybody's writing about?
What interests me? What are the questions that I haven't had answered yet? Because there's always something. There's always going to be, if everyone is talking about something, you read everyone else's take and you're like, yeah, but what about, and there's always something, and that you're in.
I think also, if you just look on this panel, all 4 of us have very strong personalities. We're not going to write the same thing, I think it's more as you, I guess I'm a little like Graeme, where I'm like always curious about why something happened that way. So, I always have, I don't know, I like to answer the questions that I have in my mind, and I find that people respond to that. So, but it's more instinctive, I have to be honest, just from doing it for so long. I didn't prep anything for the panel, because I've done it so many times. Yeah. And I knew that the people on it this time would dictate, where the conversation went. So I didn't need to. It would just flow naturally, and then there would be questions if we needed a new, 5 minutes. So
Jamie, right?
Yeah, exactly. How about I know, Jamie? How do you find fresh angles?
I
think you are a fresh angle. I gotta be honest.
Really, that's all we do is talk about stuff that no one else is talking about because we're talking about marginalized groups, you know? So it's pretty easy for me to do in the space that I'm in. Yeah.
How does it feel to be that kind of groundbreaker, though?
I mean, it's a little overwhelming, just how many people have responded to the site. I remember when I was sort of toiling over using the term Black Girl Nerds as the name of the site, that people would think that it's, you know, exclusive and, oh, well, you know, I don't feel like this site will speak to me, or, you know, you guys are trying to separate yourselves from everybody else and, you know, nerd culture or whatever. But people have responded well, and a lot of the fans and followers of Black Girl Nerds are not all women and not all Black. So now that's refreshing that we're able to speak on these perspectives and have this platform and people get it.
Yeah. You know, I got to ask you this question because, I mean, I certainly struggled in my, you know, when I started out, I didn't come to Comic-Con. I mean, there was really only 20 women at the show, you know, so it was both good and bad. You got a lot of attention for the better and for the worse. But I knew I wasn't alone, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I knew, and I you know, when I first started reading your site, like looking at your Twitter, I mean, you have so many followers, and it's just like, how did this existence of women of color who like nerdy things, how did people not know first? I mean, were they always there, or is it
always been there? It's just, and I think that's why the site had this huge following so fast, because finally, this is the space that I've been looking for all my life. Because we've always been there. We've always been in the comic book stores. We've always been, you know, at the video arcades and being gamers and cosplaying at all of our favorite cons. There just ever hasn't been a space that says directly, this is safe for you. You can express yourself here. You've got a community of people that are cut from the same cloth as you that's here. And join us and have fun, and let's geek out over everything.
Yeah. It's amazing. Now, all right, so we just have a couple minutes left, actually. Now, I mean, is there anyone out there who actually wants to write about comics? Look at that, 2 people, 2 brave souls, 2 brave, many Boffins gave their lives. You know, if there, yeah, all right, yes.
Question, because you guys probably absorb an ungodly amount of content constantly. Do you have methods to, I guess, prioritize that stuff, or ways that you look to sort of, noteworthy sources and things like that, and choose where you want to be and what you want to do? Because it's impossible to absorb everything the way things are today.
I rely on a lot of smart people.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends who will let me know, like, this is really important. Like, you have no idea about this, but you should be reading this. And that's just what I'm responding to personally.
I think that's the thing. When you first start out, you have a perspective already. You know what you like, and you start reading. And you've read all this stuff, and you want to talk about it. So you start talking about it, and then you make friends who like the same stuff, and they tell you, "Hey, look at this over here. You've never seen this before, but you should read it because you love it." And then you sort of go from there.
Just having a team of contributors that are experts in each different area. Like, I don't watch Doctor Who. I'm not a Whovian. I apologize.
Right.
I apologize.
It's over.
Yeah. But, you know, we've got our resident Whovian. We've got our resident gamer, you know, all of those folks that are like subject matter experts in all of those different fields. Because you're right, like, it's impossible to consume it all. It's just so much going on.
I mean, I've got to be cynical. I also look at stuff that I know is going to get readership. So, you know, I personally am not enjoying Marvel's outfit right now, but I'm going to look at it and read it because other people do, and other people want to read about it. So that's something I should be up on.
Yeah. I mean, I also, like, I use TweetDeck, which is a Twitter app, and you can have different columns for different things. That is the one, you know.
Twitter tells you everything.
It does, but you have to curate it. You know, you have to make your little list of who exactly covers. Like, I have one list for the New York Mets, and I look at that. And then I have, I'm a big Mets fan. Then I have another one that's, you know, really like comics creators. And I have one that's like comics journalists, and, you know, one for politics. So, and then between those 4, I never get any work done. I just read the book. Right. So, but that, I mean, that's more of a problem for me, is because, you know, in this kind of quest to be immediate and of the moment, you're like, oh, I got to read all these tweets, and then you just go down the tweet hole. You know, you're like, oh, Trump did what? and wait a minute, Marvel's, and then you're done with that, and you're like, okay, now I can go. Well, you know what? Let me just see what happened at Marvel today. I'm like, oh boy. And then, after that, you've recovered, and then it's like, oh no, the Mets traded DeGrom, no! But, so then the day's gone, and no work has been done. So, you have to have some self-discipline. I think all of us have to have some self-discipline to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you like this stuff, you find weird ways to cram it into your day. Like, I live in New York, and I walk to and from work, which is about an hour each way, so I listen to podcasts on the way to and from. And then I listen to music when I'm in the office, and then I'm reading books when I'm like at lunch or at home or whatever.
Yeah, I just watched the Mets. That's my life. It looks like our next panel is whatever the mysterious subject matter is coming in, and so we will draw to a close for another year, the comics journalism panel. Quick plugs for people. Mention your convention really fast.
So if you're in Baltimore or around the Baltimore area, I am the co-founder of a con called Universal Fan Con. It'll be in its first year. It's April 19th of next year, April 19th through the 22nd. And it's the first con that's really going to celebrate diversity and inclusion. So we're really excited about it. Orlando Jones, who's here officiating weddings right now, he's a featured guest, and we've got so many more guests and still some more announcements to come, so definitely check it out.
Great. Graeme, what's next from you?
I'm going to be here for the next few days getting ever more tired.
That's right.
You can read my stuff this weekend on the Heat Vision blog and the Hollywood Reporter.
Yeah, good stuff there. Of course, I'll be at the beat once in a while, so after this I gotta go right, actually. Yeah.
I'm going to be hanging around the con too. I'm interviewing my child with Hero Gerard Way again.
There you go.
And I was just going something online, right?
Yeah.
Whites and Wings.
Yeah. And I'm Comics Ace, UMIX and Graeme.
Yep, which is spelled weird, GRAEMEM on Twitter.
Yep, at Black Girl Nerds on Twitter, or my personal at Jamie Broadnax.
Well, anyway, guys, Graeme, Jamie, Alex, thank you so much, and thank you for coming, and happy Comic-Con.
The Black Girl Nerds podcast is produced by Jamie Broadnax. Various episodes are edited by Jamie Broadnax, M.R. Daniel, and John Bauer. The opening theme song to our show is written and performed by Samus. Various instrumentals are performed by Samus, Sky Blue, and Shubzilla. You can find episodes of the Black Girl Nerds podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play Music, Stitcher, Spreaker, and Spotify.
That was a HeadGum podcast.